My phone rang at 2 a.m. It was my youngest daughter. She works for the FBI. "Dad," she whispered, "listen to me carefully and don't say my name out loud. Tomorrow your son is going to bring you papers to sign. Do not sign anything. Do not tell him I called. And Dad, whatever you do, act like everything is normal." Then the line went dead. I sat up in the dark. My heart was pounding. My own son. What had he done that the FBI knew about it before I did? Welcome back to The Forgotten Parent. Grab your coffee, get comfortable, and remember, the people in these stories had every chance to do right by the ones who raised them. They just chose wrong. Drop a comment, and be sure to subscribe. You're going to want to stay till the end. My name is Samuel Okafor. I am 70 years old. I live in a quiet house outside Columbus, Ohio. I am a retired high school math teacher. I taught algebra to 3,000 kids over 34 years. I drive a sensible sedan. I wear reading glasses on a chain. I do the crossword in pen. People see a harmless old teacher who probably never had an exciting day in his life. That suits me fine. But a math teacher notices things. Numbers do not lie. People do, but numbers never do. I spent my whole life teaching young people that if the equation does not balance, someone made an error somewhere. You go back. You check every step. You find the mistake. That habit does not retire when you do. I still balance every equation I meet, including the ones inside my own family. Here is a small truth about me. I do the crossword in pen, not to show off, to keep myself honest. Pen means you cannot pretend you never made a mistake. If I write a wrong word, there it sits, in ink, for me to see and fix. I have lived my whole life that way. In ink. No erasing, no pretending. Own the error, correct it, move on. It is a good way to teach algebra. It turned out to be a good way to survive a con, too. I have 2 children. My son Terrence is 44. My daughter Nadia is 39. I raised them alone after their mother passed when they were young. My wife Grace died of cancer when Terrence was 12 and Nadia was 7. I still remember standing in that hospital hallway, holding 2 crying children, thinking I had no idea how to do this. I was a math teacher. I knew equations. I did not know how to be a mother and a father at the same time. But you learn. You learn because they need you to. I worked summers to put them both through college. I tutored on weekends. I coached the math team for free because it came with a small stipend. I drove the same car for 15 years so they could have new shoes. I never once complained. They were my whole equation. Every hour I worked, I was solving for their future. That was the only sum that ever mattered to me. Grace used to say I loved my students almost as much as my own kids. Maybe I did. But I loved my kids like my own heartbeat. That is what makes this story so hard to tell. Because one of those children, the boy I sat up with through fevers, the boy I taught to throw a ball in a parking lot after school, grew into a man who looked at his father and saw a mark. Grace would have wept. I am glad, in a terrible way, that she did not live to see it. I was proud of them both once. I am still proud of Nadia. She became a federal agent. She catches people who steal from others. She is the finest person I know. She got her honesty the hard way, watching her father work 3 jobs and never take a dishonest dollar. Some lessons you teach with words. The best ones you teach by simply living them where your children can see. Terrence went a different way. He was always charming, always looking for the shortcut, the big score, the deal that would make him rich without the years of work. He got into finance. He drove cars he could not afford. He wore watches that cost more than my first house. I worried about him for years. I did not know how right I was to worry. The signs were there when he was young, if I am honest with myself. In high school, he sold answers to a test he had stolen. I found out and made him confess to the principal. He did not understand why. "I found a market and I filled it, Pop," he said, actually proud of himself. I remember the chill I felt, not because he cheated, because he could not see why it was wrong. To Terence, a rule was just an obstacle between him and what he wanted. Over the years there were other things. A business in college that took people's deposits and delivered nothing. A car loan in a friend's name. Small cons, always with a smooth explanation. Every time I bailed him out, lectured him, hoped he would change. Every time he thanked me and did it again. I know now I was part of the problem. Every rescue taught him that his father would always catch him before he hit the ground. So he kept jumping from higher places. By the time he was in his 40s, the jumps had gotten dangerous. He was not conning classmates anymore. He was borrowing from people who hurt those who did not pay. And when those people came calling, my son did not look for an honest way out. He looked at his widowed father's paid-off house, and he saw a solution. My house. My life's work. His escape hatch. About a year ago, Terence started coming around more often. That should have been my first clue. He had barely called in 5 years. Suddenly he was at my door every week, all smiles. "Just checking on you, Pop," he would say. He brought groceries I did not need. He fixed a gate that was not broken. He was warming me up for something. I felt it in my gut, the way you feel a storm before the sky changes. Then the questions started. Casual ones at first. "Pop, is the house paid off? Pop, you got any investments I should know about? You should really let me manage your money. I do this for a living." I taught teenagers for 34 years. I know when a young person is working an angle. I just smiled and changed the subject. But I started paying closer attention. I started checking my own equation. What I did not know, what I could not have known, was that Terence was in serious trouble. My daughter knew. She could not tell me the details. But she knew her brother had gotten tangled up with the wrong people. She knew he owed money he could not pay. And she knew he had started looking at our father like an ATM with a pulse. That is why she called me at 2 in the morning. She was trying to save us both. The morning after her call, right on schedule, Terence showed up. He had a folder under his arm and a big smile on his face. "Pop, great news," he said. "I found a way to protect your assets. Tax stuff. Real smart. Just need your signature on a few things." He spread the papers on my kitchen table. My daughter's whisper echoed in my head, "Do not sign anything. Act normal." So I acted normal. I put on my reading glasses. I picked up the papers. And I did what a math teacher does. I read every single line. Terence got nervous fast. "You don't need to read all that, Pop. It's just boilerplate." I smiled. "Son, I made kids show their work for 34 years. You think I'd sign without showing mine?" He laughed, but the laugh was thin. Sweat appeared at his hairline. The papers were not tax protection. Not even close. They were a transfer of power of attorney. They would have given Terence full control over my house, my pension, my accounts, everything. Buried in the legal language was a clause that let him sell my home without asking me. He was not protecting my assets. He was handing himself the keys to my entire life. And he was smiling while he did it. I want to tell you exactly how I knew. Page 4, paragraph 9. The words irrevocable and sole discretion sat next to each other. In plain English, that meant once I signed I could never take it back, and Terence could do whatever he wanted. No teacher who ever read a contract twice would miss it. But Terence was counting on me not reading it at all. He was counting on trust. He was counting on the fact that a father does not expect his son to rob him at the kitchen table. He weaponized my love. That is the coldest math there is. I looked up from page 4. Terence was watching me too closely. "It's just standard, Pop," he said again, too quickly. And I understood then that my son knew exactly what was in that document. This was not a mix-up. This was not a son being careless. He had brought a loaded gun to his father's house and dressed it up as a gift. The only thing left to decide was what I was going to do about it. Something in my stomach went cold and still. This was my boy, the child I taught to ride a bike. The child I carried on my shoulders, and he was sitting at my table trying to trick me out of everything I owned because he thought his old father was too simple to read. That is a specific kind of heartbreak. It does not make you cry. It makes you very, very quiet. I did not sign. I told him I never sign anything the same day I read it. Old teacher's rule, I said. Sleep on it. Check it twice. He pushed. He pushed harder than a son should push a father. Pop, this is time sensitive. I really need this done today. That was the tell. Honest paperwork is never an emergency. Only a trap has a ticking clock. I told him I would think about it. He left frustrated, and the moment his car pulled away, I called Nadia. If you've made it this far, do us one quick favor. Subscribe. A lot of people watch without ever doing it. But it costs you nothing and means everything to us. Thank you genuinely. Now let me tell you what my daughter told me and how a quiet old math teacher helped the FBI balance the books. Nadia came over that night. She parked around the block, which frightened me more than anything. She sat at my kitchen table where Terrence had sat that morning. She took a deep breath. Dad, I can't tell you everything. But I can tell you this. Terrence is being investigated. Not by me, by my colleagues. He borrowed money from people who launder it. He's in over his head. And now he's trying to use your assets to pay them back and hide the money at the same time. I sat very still. My daughter reached across the table and held my hand. If you had signed those papers, she said, your house would have become part of their scheme. You could have lost everything. You might even have been dragged into the investigation yourself, an innocent man, tangled up in his son's crimes. The equation finally balanced. And the answer was ugly. Here is where most fathers would have fallen apart, or worse, tried to protect their son by hiding it. I understand that urge. Blood is blood. But I am a math teacher. You cannot fix a wrong answer by covering it up. You can only fix it by working the problem honestly. And I had 2 children to think about. One who broke the law, and one who spent her life upholding it. I would not sacrifice my daughter's integrity to protect my son's crime. What do you need me to do? I asked her. Nadia looked surprised. Dad, you don't have to be involved. I just came to warn you. I shook my head. Nadia, I taught 3,000 young people to do the right thing even when it's hard. I will not preach a lesson I won't practice. Tell me how to help. My daughter's eyes filled with tears. Okay, Dad, she said softly. Okay, she held my hands across the table for a long moment. Dad, I need you to understand what this means, she said. If you help, you may have to watch your own son get arrested. In your house. You may have to lie to his face for weeks. Can you carry that? I thought about Grace. I thought about the man I wanted to be when I finally saw her again. Nadia, I said, I have spent 70 years trying to be a man my children could respect. I will not stop now, when it costs the most. The bill for honesty always comes due at the worst moment. That is how you know it is real. She nodded slowly. In that moment she was not an agent, and I was not her father. We were 2 honest people, agreeing to do a hard right thing together. The plan was careful and slow. I would not sign the papers, but I would not refuse outright either. I would stall. I would keep Terrence talking. I would keep him coming around, believing his old father was almost convinced, and every time he came, I would listen. I would remember. Because Terrence, when he felt safe, could not stop bragging. He always talked too much. Even as a boy, he confessed his own mischief because he could not resist showing how clever he had been. So I played the part. The confused old man, almost persuaded, needing just a little more explanation. Walk me through it again, son. My old brain is slow. And Terence, impatient and arrogant, walked me through more than he ever should have. He told me about the men he owed. He told me about the deadlines. He mentioned names. He mentioned amounts. He thought he was managing a foolish old man. He was reciting evidence to a father with a very good memory. I wrote it all down after he left, every time. Dates, names, numbers, just like grading papers. I filled a notebook. Not a recording, at first, just a careful teacher's ledger of everything my son could not stop saying. Later, with Nadia's colleagues guiding me from a distance, I did more. But I want to be honest about the weight of it. Every word I wrote down was a nail in my own son's future. I wept over that notebook more than once. A father should never have to grade his child's crimes. There was a night I nearly stopped. Terence came by, and for a moment he was not the con man. He was just tired. He sat on my porch and put his head in his hands. "Pop," he said, "I've made a mess. A real mess." For a heartbeat I thought he might confess, might ask for real help, the honest kind. I almost put my arm around him and said, "Let's fix this together, let's go to Nadia and do it right." But then he lifted his head, and the con man was back. "But this deal with your house is gonna fix it all, Pop, just sign." And I knew. He did not want a way out. He wanted a way through me. That was the moment I stopped hesitating. My son had looked at his father, in genuine pain, and still chosen to use me. Love had one more chance to turn him, and he spent it on the con. So I finished the equation. I gave Nadia's colleagues everything. The notebook. The papers he wanted signed. And eventually, with a tiny recorder they gave me, his own voice, laying out the whole scheme at my kitchen table. Thinking he was talking to a fool. Nadia's colleagues worked with me carefully. A different agent, a kind woman named Reyes, became my contact so Nadia would not be too close to the case. Agent Reyes taught me how to keep Terence talking without leading him. "Just be his father," she said. "Let him underestimate you. He'll do the rest." She was right. My son never once suspected that his slow old dad was working with the very agency that would take him down. He was too busy being clever to notice anyone else being careful. I learned things in those weeks that broke my heart. The men Terence owed had already threatened him. He had gambled client money and lost it. He had forged a document at his firm. Each fact landed like a stone. My boy had not just made one mistake. He had built an entire life out of them, a tower of shortcuts, and now the whole thing was swaying. And his plan to save it was to pull his own father in as the foundation. The investigation moved quietly for weeks. I kept stalling Terence. "The lawyer's reviewing it, son. Almost there." He grew impatient, then desperate, because his own deadline with dangerous men was closing in. I felt the pressure through him. Some nights I barely slept. I was a 70-year-old math teacher helping build a federal case against my own child and smiling at him across the dinner table the whole time. It was the hardest arithmetic of my life. There was one dinner I will never forget. Terence brought over takeout, trying to soften me up. We ate at the same table where I helped him with algebra homework 30 years before. He talked and talked, spilling details, and the little recorder in my shirt pocket caught all of it. And the whole time, part of me was screaming inside. "This is your son. This is the boy who fell asleep on your chest." But another part, the teacher, the father who knew right from wrong, kept steady. Because love that lets a child destroy himself is not love. It is cowardice wearing love's coat. Then came the day. Nadia called me in the morning. "Today, Dad. Stay home. It's happening today." That afternoon, Terence came by one last time, frantic, demanding I sign. "Pop, it has to be today. I'm out of time, please." I looked at my son. I took off my reading glasses. And for the first time in months, I stopped acting. "Terence," I said quietly, "I know about the men you owe. I know about the money. I know what these papers really do. I've known for a long time." His face went white. "Pop, what are you talking about? Who told you?" Before I could answer, there was a knock at the door. Firm, official, Terrence spun around. Federal agents stood on my porch. Behind them, at the curb, stood Nadia, in her jacket with the letters on the back, her face carved from stone and grief. Terrence looked at his sister, then at me. The whole equation, finally, in front of him. "You," he breathed. "You two did this." "No, son," I said. "You did this. We just stopped hiding your answer." The agents came in. They read him his rights in my living room, under the photos of him as a smiling boy. He did not fight. He just kept looking at me with a stunned, betrayed expression, as if I were the one who had done wrong. As if a father protecting the truth were a traitor. I held his gaze. I did not look away. A teacher never looks away from a hard lesson. For a moment the con man broke, and the boy came back. "Pop," he whispered, his voice cracking, "I was going to pay it all back. I swear, I never wanted to hurt you, and I believe he believed that. That is the tragedy of a man like my son. He lies so smoothly that he lies to himself best of all. He truly thought he could steal his father's house and call it love, as long as he meant to give it back someday. But someday is not a plan. Someday is just a nicer word for never." I walked to him. The agents let me. I put my hand on his cheek, the way I did when he was small and scared. "Terrence," I said, "I am not doing this to you. I am doing this for you. You have been falling your whole life because I always caught you. This time I am letting you land. It is the only thing left that might save you." He wept then. Real tears, not con man's tears. Nadia stood in the doorway and wept too. 3 broken people in a house full of old photographs. Sometimes love looks exactly like heartbreak. Now here is what I need you to understand about how I handled it. My son did not commit a violent crime. He did not hurt anyone with his hands. So I did not want him destroyed. I wanted him stopped, and I wanted him held accountable, and I wanted him to face the truth he kept running from. Because of my cooperation, and Nadia's, the prosecutors saw that Terrence had a father and a sister who chose honesty over shielding him. That mattered. He was charged. He pleaded guilty. He is serving his time. But he also got a chance, in there, to finally become an honest man. The dangerous men he owed? The FBI had been after them for years. Terrence's case cracked open a much bigger one. My careful notebook, my son's careless bragging, it all helped bring down people who had hurt many families. A quiet old math teacher, doing the arithmetic, helped balance a very large ledger. Nadia's colleagues thanked me. One of them said, "Sir, you'd have made a heck of an agent." I told him I preferred algebra. Less paperwork. I later learned those men had ruined other elderly people. They ran their schemes through the desperate and the trusting. Some of their victims lost their homes. One old man, they told me, lost everything and died a year later, broke and ashamed. When I heard that, I stopped feeling guilty about the notebook. My son made his own choices. But the men behind him were monsters who fed on people exactly like me. Helping to stop them was not betrayal. It was the most honest thing I ever did with a pencil. There is a strange gift in being underestimated. Those men, and even my own son, never imagined that the slow old teacher taking the meeting was memorizing every word. They performed their whole scheme in front of an audience they thought was asleep. That is the secret power of the overlooked. The world talks freely in front of us because it forgot we can still hear. We hear everything. We always have. Terrence would not speak to me for a long time. He was angry. He felt betrayed by his own family. But something changed in his second year inside. He started reading. He got his footing. He wrote me a letter. "Pop," it said, "for a while I hated you for turning me in. Now I understand. You didn't turn me in. You refused to go down with me, and you gave me the only thing nobody else would. The truth. I'm sorry. I'm going to be better. Watch me show my work this time. I read that letter 100 times. Nadia and I grew even closer through all of it. She carried a heavy weight, helping investigate her own brother. Some nights she needed her father, not a federal agent, just her dad. I made her tea. I let her cry. I told her what I told my students for 34 years. Doing the right thing is not the same as doing the easy thing. If it were easy, it would not be worth teaching. She put her head on my shoulder. You taught me that when I was 10, she said. I did, I told her. And you learned it better than anyone. The first few prison visits were hard. Terrence was still angry, still spinning stories about how the system was unfair, how everyone else was to blame. I just listened. I did not argue. I know how to wait out a wrong answer. You do not shout the right answer at a student. You let them keep working the problem until they see the error themselves. So I visited, month after month, and I waited. Then, in his second year, something shifted. He started teaching a basic math class to other inmates who never finished school. He wrote to me about it. Pop, there's a guy in here who couldn't do fractions. I taught him. He cried when he got it. I finally understand why you did what you did for a living. My hands shook when I read that. My son, in prison, had finally discovered the joy of building someone up instead of taking them down. The apple had rolled a long way from the tree, but it was rolling back. These days, my house is quiet again, but it is a good quiet. I do my crossword in pen. I balance my checkbook to the penny. I visit Terrence once a month. We are rebuilding something, slowly, honestly, the only way that lasts. He is learning to accept a small, real life over a big, fake one. He is learning that a paid-off house earned honestly is worth more than a mansion built on a lie. It took losing everything for him to learn the lesson I tried to teach him for free. Nadia carries her own weight from all of it. Helping investigate her brother cost her something no promotion can repay. Some nights she still calls me, and I can hear it in her voice, the guilt of the honest child. Did I do the right thing, Dad? She asks. And every time I tell her the same thing. You did not turn your brother in, sweetheart. You refused to let him drown our family. Those are not the same. One is betrayal, the other is love with a spine. She always goes quiet for a moment. Then she says, "Thanks, Dad," and I know she will make it to morning. I think about that 2 a.m. phone call all the time. My daughter, risking her career to whisper a warning to her father. If she had not called, if I had signed those papers half asleep and trusting, I would have lost my home and maybe my freedom. Instead, because one child chose the truth, the whole family got a chance to heal. That is the strange arithmetic of honesty. It costs you everything at first, and then, slowly, it pays back more than you lost. I keep Grace's photo on the mantel. Some nights I talk to it. I told her everything. I told her what our son did. I told her what I had to do about it. I like to think she understood. She always saw further than me. She would have grieved, but she would have nodded. She hated a lie more than anyone I ever knew. She used to say a lie is just a debt you take out against tomorrow. Terrence took out too many. Tomorrow finally came to collect. I also think about the other students, the 3,000 kids. I wonder how many faced a moment like mine, a moment where the easy thing and the right thing pulled in opposite directions. I hope I taught them well. I hope, when their moment came, they showed their work. I hope they chose the hard road. That is the only lesson that ever really mattered. The rest was just algebra. People underestimate old teachers. They think we are soft, out of date, easy to fool. They forget that we spent our whole lives watching young people try every trick in the book. We have seen every excuse. We have caught every shortcut. We taught the very generation that thinks it can outsmart us. My son thought his father was a simple old man with a paid-off house. He forgot that the simple old man taught him everything he knows, including how to spot a lie. Especially how to spot a lie. If you like this story, join our community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, raw, and family-centered stories. And as always, thank you for being part of this family. And remember this: if someone rushes you to sign, if the paper cannot wait, if the deal will die unless you act right now, stop, take off your glasses. Read every line. An honest offer can survive a good night's sleep. Only a trap needs your signature before you have time to think.